everybody, in this video, we're going to be talking about Nimrod. He's coming soon. Are you ready? We're going to be talking about what he does, what's his dex, when's he coming, all that sort of thing. Got a lot of options out there, so let's just dive in. March 6th. So as of shooting this video right now, it is February 23rd. So we don't have that much longer, a couple weeks coming. I would highly recommend planning for this. I think he's going to be a pretty solid card with some multiple options. If you go over to Snap Zone, they talk a little bit about when this is coming, the different options in this. It's a season pass. So if you want to get this guy, 10 bucks. I think generally speaking, the season passes are pretty good values. These are the things you're going to see in this season pass. Now, for me personally, outside of the fact that I think Nimrod is a very interesting card and can help you spread things around the board a little bit if used properly, which we'll do in the decks. I love the Wolverine variant here. I think that's a pretty cool Wolverine variant. The Sentinel one, it's a steampunk variant. I don't know. I mean, it's not necessarily doing anything for me, but the Wolverine one, very, very cool. The one coming next month, in case you're wondering, HitMonkey. We're not going to focus on that one, but keep an eye out. And if you don't have Goose, which I do like that variant, I don't have Goose. I'm excited for this one because that way I can check that box. All right, so Nimrod, what does he do? Basically, when you destroy him, it adds a copy to other locations, right? So those sort of cards are always critical because if somebody locks down a location, maybe with Storm or something along those lines, but not a Professor X, you want to get something like this going. Any of those destroy decks, your Destroyers, your Galactus, that's what we're going to be focused on in this specific video. I think he is a 5-cost card, so I think that makes things a little bit difficult. But we're going to look at what we got here. So first up, we're going to look at the first Galactus one. So this one, I'm sort of calling it a bring him out early, but it can be a tell. So a lot of people are going to be ready for Galactus like this when you're playing these sort of cards. You've got your Nova and your Wolverine, just so that whenever you destroy everything with Galactus, that you get points for it. Now, you also have Hulkbuster to help build up that Wolverine. That's the whole idea there. So when you have a Hulk bust, I try to keep Wolverine solo the best you can. You've got your Psylocke, your Electro, your Wave to bring them out early. You've got your Cloak in case you need to move something, because maybe someone Polarised you or who knows what. But you want to have that in your deck just to make sure. Obviously, Nimrod. You got the Doc Ock in here in case you want to pull a bunch of cards out that your opponent's got just to sort of lock down one location and then blow it up. And then obviously you've got your Galactus and your Death. Galactus to blow up all their locations, Death to hopefully get them much more reduced cost with blowing everything up. We're going to be talking about other options that you can kind of swing into these, but we'll save that for right after the other Galactus one. This Galactus one, shout out to Key/Heligar. I keep saying Kelly. This one's a little less telling. Also, you add Forge to help build up the Wolverine as well. So you could Forge, you could Wolverine, you could Hulk Bust. You've got the Hobgoblins in here to reduce points on the spot that you're going to eventually Galactus. That could be very good. Zola's only in here in case you don't get your Galactus. It's sort of a backup plan. Maybe you can use that on your Nimrod. Forge and Hulkbuster on the Nimrod works just as well as too. And honestly, arguably could be a bit better. You get that card in 2 locations. Either way, you've got options. In all of these decks, you want to have multiple win scenarios. That is critical. Venom is just a generally decent card to sort of blow up anything that you want to maybe move stuff around, get points for it, and then eventually blow up with Galactus anyway. The other options for these sort of decks, there's a bunch of them out here. I'm jumping over to WolverSNAP-LETS. There's a ton of Galactus decks in here. The options when I went through this, and I like the best: Forge, Null, Shang-Chi, the Goblins, Okoye, Magic to extend it, Adam Warlock to draw out as many cards as you can, Sabretooth, because when you destroy him, he comes back to your deck for free. She-Hulk is an option, and maybe if you're not playing or something, you can slam her down late. You know, if you're Galactusing, how do you do that? But I don't know, something to think about. And then the Thanos Quinjet sort of deception option, which is this first one. You're just throwing stuff all over the place. Cheap. It's pretty solid. So you can go through here and look on MarvelSnap.pro if you want to look at a bunch of these other options. This one I also thought was interesting. I wasn't 100% certain exactly how to play this. We were talking about it. It's all about priority in that last turn. You Valkyrie, well, your opponent goes, you then Valkyrie, then you drop your death. Easy win. A lot of decent cards in here. Anyway, you can go check these out, see what they're like. The other deck options we've got here, this is, let's see, we got this one where it's Destroyer. This is our, what I'll call a typical Destroyer with a lane protected. Though you got to remember, Nimrod will not be added to the Professor X lane. So Professor X becomes one of those potential multi-win scenario situations. It's just something to think about in case you don't get your Nimrod. You want it there. Wave, obviously, to help get some things out early. The other options you want to have when you do something like this to help lock down a lane, Warpath is a great option. It's a 4-cost card. You're in theory, you're only playing 2 lanes, so one will be clear. So he will be 9 points. Spider-Man to limit that lane as well. Lizard, just cheap card for decent points. But again, remember, you hope your opponent doesn't have 4 cards in that spot. Ant-Man, Sunspot, White Queen, Maximus, any sort of card that gives you a decent return for the energy, a good curve, so they say, so all the experts say. The other option here, this was, shout out to Rob, never miss Rob. This is sort of your, I call it like full destroy package. It's got a lot of the destroy cards in it. You got a wave to pull stuff out early. You got a Zola, you basically got a lot of these different cards. And depending what you get played out, you can sort of put the puzzle pieces where you want to put them. It just depends. But there's a lot of options within this, and you just got to be smart about what you get and what you play. But how these all sort of sync together, they all work. So this can be a great sort of full package if you've got all these cards. And they all will, in theory, work together. It just depends what you get. And then last but not least, as far as the Destroyer packages go, again, shout out to Key on this one, is I call this one like an early and destroy. So you've got the Psylocke and the Electro to help get some of these cards out early. And then you've just got cards you want to blow up. You've got, you know, Nova to give you extra points, Squirrel Girl just to blow things up, Bucky to, depending where you play them, to blow up and get a card there. Wolverine, same thing, Carnage to do some damage. You've got Shang-Chi to potentially destroy any high cards in the spot that you want to play at. And then you've got sort of some staples here with the Nimrod, Null for adding some points up, and then the Destroyer and the Death. Same concept here. If you go over to MarvelSnap.pro, you can come find some of the Destroyer decks. Other options with this again, Forge, Shang-Chi, we mentioned, the Goblins, Okoye, Magic to extend the turns, Adam Warlock's an option. Colossus, because he doesn't get busted. Already talked about Spider-Man. We talked about Bucky. Spectrum is not a bad option. It's a card that you get pretty early. It also helps in case you don't get Destroyer, just to give you some potentially, again, if you've got ongoing cards out there, just remember to make sure to have that in whatever deck you put her in. Otherwise, it's sort of just like, it's, I don't know, that's not a great 6-cost card unless you've got a lot of ongoings out there. Besides that, you got the early card plays. We talked about Psylocke and Electro. Now, Doom, if you are playing that early option, I think he shows up somewhere in here. If you've got, there he is. If you've got some of those early cards, they don't have the early cards in this one, but it's an option. I didn't put this on my list, but Daredevil, I just love Daredevil. I feel like he fits in any deck that you're playing just to see stuff. So something to think about. And even if you're going to destroy him, you know what's going to happen. So you know what happens turn 5. You do something different. You kind of move on there. So, and then the other one is Mojo and Captain America. Now, if you're going to do Mojo, though, that shows up somewhere in this list as well. Oh, here it is. Remember, that only gives you the points if you and your opponent have the 4 cards. But that's one of those things where if you are doing a Professor X lockdown type lane, maybe both of those get 4 in it. That's the only reason I'd look at Mojo, but it is an option. Now, the last but not least that I wanted to look at with this is, to me, potentially the most fun. Also, potentially the easiest one to counter, unfortunately. So, this is an early starter. You've got your early starter cards with Psylocke, Zabu, Electro, any of those type of things to potentially get something early. I suppose you could try Wave, but really, I mean, that's not going to do anything for the cards that we're currently looking at here. The idea behind this, if you're not aware, is get that Wong, get that Shuri, get that Nimrod, and then Zola it. And it's just like, so you're spreading large Nimrods throughout the map or throughout the locations. I just think that'd be a lot of fun. Super cool. Again, very easy to counter because the first card in theory you'd want to play would be Wong. And when you've got Wong out there and you're showing everybody your Wong, it's an ongoing. Enchantress, bye, thanks. Rogue, thanks, bye. You're done. So if you choose to do this, make sure whatever 5 other cards that you put in here are other options. Now, the other options you could, Odin, but that doesn't help with that. Doom, you could put that someone else. VP, that plays right into this, but gives you an option if maybe you don't get your Nimrod, but it's a decent play. Taskmaster to copy something potentially. White Tiger, Ironheart, Okoye, Scorpion, Iceman, Gambit. Those all play into this Wong aspect and just doubling everything up. So I would definitely go through, again, Marvel Snap.Pro. They've got a lot of decks out here. I would try to find something. I mean, it'd be good to have like 1 or 2 fill-ins in case you don't get Nimrod, like a Black Panther, a White Tiger type thing. So you get 2, but then have 3 other cards that if your Wong gets shut down, you have something that you can do here. You've got to find something there. There are a ton of cards in game. I mean, Absorbing Man, I mean, technically it's an ongoing, but that's an option maybe somewhere else. I love that somebody already has HitMonkey in a deck. Anything, I mean, Blue Marvel put somewhere, Mystique to copy somebody that was somewhere else. I mean, you always love the Wong Mystique combo, and that is always fun. I mean, just because it's ongoing there. I mean, maybe you put that in a different location to spread your risk around. Now, you don't get as high cards or high point values, but maybe you make it so that you're less at risk. Look at something there that might be beneficial. You know, a lot of these are sort of lean into the Wong, or you just retreat. You know, you lose it, you retreat. Now, if I was playing one of these Wong hands and I knew I could counter it, I would snap before I countered it, so I at least got 2 cubes. Something to think about. But I think this Nimrod sort of situation, I don't want to call it a Nimrod meta, because we want to see, and people are going to come out with counters all over the place for this thing. It's going to be a fun, I think, exciting season. I think this is going to be a very interesting card to see how people play it. I think a lot of those decks we just went through are going to be a lot of what you see throughout that season. Again, for $10, if you got some of those cards, and again, a lot of these decks, I mean, I always talk about this. I'm missing a lot of these cards. So some of these I just can't straight up play with. But when where's the Rob one? This Rob one, Full Destroy. I mean, maybe I can play something with my Carnage, you know, my Deathlock. You know, maybe there's a budget deck option out there. I'll take a peek at that as well, because, you know, not everyone's going to have Galactus. Not everyone's going to have Death. Not everyone's going to have Zola. There's a lot. I mean, I don't have, on this deck alone, I don't have Venom, Wave, Zola, Null, Galactus, Destroy, or Death. Right? I don't have any of those. But I do have some of these early ones. So maybe I try to find a deck with that's a little bit budget. So I appreciate you guys making it this far. If I helped, or if you want to see more content like this, please consider hammering down the like button, notification bell, share with aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews. Appreciate that. Until next time, hope you have a wonderful day.